And good morning, you're tuned right here to 1260 AM KLYC, streaming right here on Facebook.com, also on the YouTube. This is To the Root of It, your weekly Yamhill County gardening show. I am Kyle Hunter, and this week I have my wife Celeste Hunter, also a Yamhill County master gardener. And so we are actually coming to you live in the studio. We've got a few chirping birds, a few chirping kids, and a few chirping plants coming out of the soil to talk about today.
We are. There's lots happening. It's spring in the valley.
Spring. Yeah, and so I think the sun is actually peeking out right now. It looks like it's going to be partly cloudy. Today we can expect it to get up to mid-60s here in Yamhill County, particularly in McMinnville. They're predicting 62 degrees, so somewhere
nice
around
day.
there. Yeah, kind of nice day, but we got the partly cloudy, and then we've also got the breeze that's coming in that makes it feel a little bit cooler.
Right, and makes it not ideal for spraying or anything.
For spraying, that's right, because that is something that I've been wanting to get to, because those blackberries are getting their big leaves up, and I want to get rid of a lot of them, especially around the housing structures, but I can't really do that right now while it's raining, huh?
No, it makes it very difficult and dangerous.
Yes.
Yes.
So we've been having the off and on Pacific Northwest spring. And last night we had some rain move in.
We did.
That was really nice because I went to bed around midnight to the sound of rain beginning, and that's what it was predicted. It was supposed to come in overnight. Yeah.
You know, and we went to bed with all the windows open to allow spring to come in, and when I got up at about 1 a.m. to, go around the house, I had to close all the windows. It had dropped significantly.
I'd noticed that because it was nice and cool with the windows, and then I wake up and the windows are closed. I'm like, well, gee, what happened there? But thanks for explaining that. I'm glad it wasn't the gnomes or the fairies. Thanks. So coming up, though, we're going to get some dry and mild coming up later in the week. So that'll be good. Coming up on April Fool's Day and the balance of that week, we're going to have more showers and then hopefully some shots of snow up in the mountains, but nothing, again, severe
nothing
or big
that's
enough.
Going to stick.
But at least a little bit of something, because we've got the spring coming right now, and I really am counting the inches because I don't want a completely dry summer.
I know, because we go through the 2 months where we have to live on the water that we've had. And so, right. Yes, if our well isn't where it wants to be, it makes watering the garden and the second well a little difficult.
Yeah, the longer that we've been on our property, the more shallow the well has become. And so on some of those hot, it hasn't really gotten the recharge that it needs. It's the rainfall has gone down each year that we've been here, and we've noticed it. There are probably about 2 weeks out of the year where it's just unusable because it's so muddy. But yeah, thanks for reminding me of that discouragement. Thanks.
Yes, very exciting, but we do have the new well.
Yeah, that's true. But then we're going to go ahead and it will be chilly coming up. I'm looking at the 7-day forecast. Everything has a chance of rain just consistently through Monday. But my friend Ray, and the guy who is usually sitting in that chair, except for when he's enjoying retirement down in the southern part of the United States. So he sent me a text from a Chicago Cubs game in Arizona.
Very nice.
That's where they play their minor league ball, and I hear people are still interested in that form. I know that when we lived in Tucson, our team, the Rockies, were down there, so it's really great to go catch a ball game, and it's really hot. But you just flew down there also just for 1 day.
I did. I got to sneak into Tucson for just 1 day, and then I got to skirt back up. And so I kind of feel like I don't know what the weather's been like here. When I read the forecast, it was interesting to me because I was in 90-degree heat. And I was talking to some of my peers about what they were doing in their garden, and it was just interesting. They're also putting their seedlings in, but they have to think of it in a whole different way. So we were having nice gardening conversations, and we were talking about the differences in water and, the things that they have to worry about. Peppers are not a problem for them because they get plenty of sun, where we have lots of problems with peppers. So it was just neat to get to garden chat with people in the desert.
No, and I'm glad that you bring that up, because we talked about peppers the other day and the other week, and we've got little ducklings popping up out of the box here. It's really fun to see. But we were talking about peppers, and we have planted our peppers. We actually brought some in, and I think one of them might be poking out right now. But the peppers down there in Arizona, they're probably full-grown leaves bushed out.
Well, not quite. They were putting them in the ground, so they're stable enough that they're big and they have some leaves to them. But they also they kept them inside so that they could keep them watered for as long as possible.
Because they're
once
still
they go
worried
outside,
about cold?
They're worried about a little cold, but most of the people that I know that garden, they actually have covers that go over their containers. Nobody I know that plants directly in the ground in Tucson. It's all in container gardens.
Yeah, and when I think about it, I guess it would take a lot of amendments to get some of that soil in Tucson to be anything worth
Not to
growing.
mention they can't even have basements in Tucson because there's this almost cement type ground there. So yes, container gardens are the way to go.
Yep, good point. And it's really nice to hear about Tucson and Arizona and how warm other places are. But as they are getting ready, so are we. We do the cold frames too. We also have a cold frame set up, and that's how we're taking care of our artichokes this year. But we're going and so it helps prolong our season. So that is the weather. I really like actually just to close it out. Rufus on OVS.com, his weather report says that there are inconsistent resolutions in the computer forecast after April 8th and even up until then. So there's too many factors that are going in to get it consistent. Well, this is the way it's going to be. So that lends it, I don't know, that's good, that's normal. That's the way it is, huh?
I think the common weather pattern, though, will continue, which is you get a couple days of rain, and then you get a couple days of break, and then there's a couple more days, and so on and so forth, and then every once in a while it drops down.
Yep. But 51 degrees right now, so it is really it's good. It's good for our ducks that we just got. But more importantly, let's talk about the chickens that we set out there, because the chickens that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, they've gone ahead and been moved from inside of our house where they were stinking up the place to outside, and now I got my nasal passages back.
Well, you did for about a day, and then we decided to go ahead and get some ducks. So, we brought in the chickens last time that I was here, and now we've moved them outside. That's been exciting, and it's amazing how quickly they turn into chickens after you move them outside. And so you have to wait until they get some of their feathers, and you also we still have a heat source that's going constantly out in the chicken coop to make sure that they're safe. And they can't go outside and roam around quite yet, so they just get to kind of have a boring life in the chicken coop, which is fine.
We opened the door, so and they've got a really large 10 by 10 space, and it's got the nice little heat lamp in there, lots of food, lots of water, and they're setting up their pecking order right now. The chickens are, and I think that we've got at least 2 roosters.
2 roosters, I agree.
And they're, of course, the Jersey Giant ones, which means that they're going to be very large roosters. And then maybe one of the leghorns is.
I actually think so. I was looking at them yesterday, and I understand we disagree on one of them. So I do believe that one of the leghorns is a rooster, and I am sure that Jersey Giant is a rooster. There's one that there is no doubt is a rooster.
And the reason that I think that 2 of the Jersey Giants, and it's hard to tell for those that don't know chicken raising, they start to develop the comb on the top of their head. The roosters do a little bit earlier, but it can be a little bit misleading because some breeds, the female also does develop that comb. But these 2, they were going at it, these 2 roosters that I believe are roosters. And the roosters and the hens don't usually, bend down, and they were getting aggressive and completely establishing who. And then the winner actually went on the top roosting pole. And then there's also an alpha female that's pretty much established herself, and she's a pretty looking thing. She's got nice little feathers, and you can just see the roosters are just like, and she sits up there like a princess on her little second roost.
Is it one of the Rhode Island Reds?
Yes.
They were.
It's as though she has lipstick too. She's It's amazing to just see the development and how it happens.
It is in their personalities that develop. That one rooster is not very nice to the other chickens. You can see it pretty quickly. When you feed them, he'll make sure that nobody else eats until he's eaten.
That's right.
He also allows that pretty chicken to come and eat second. So, there's some things. And then just to kind of follow up, there were a couple experiments I was starting. So I did build new roosts, and I used the same measurements that I had told everybody. I had actually decided that since they were little chicks, that I would add one way down at the bottom because I was concerned. And nature proved me wrong yet again, and they're able to get clear up to the top roost just fine. So I have an extra one at the bottom, which isn't a big deal. And then I also finished the chicken box, the nesting box, and so that's in there. And I was a little worried they wouldn't be able to get up there as well, or that they wouldn't.
Because it's about 2 feet, almost 18 inches, 2 feet up. And so you worry because you think that they're going to be these little baby chicks that are 6 inches tall forever that can't jump or fly.
Or that they won't be able to see that there's a box there. How will they know? And actually they've gotten quite used to it. So we think that that's going to work quite well. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's really always an experience, and I thought that these ones might be because I felt like if we kept them indoors a little long, the little pin is a little confining. They might get a little bit of prison syndrome and get a little knifey with each other. But they're pretty calm. They're not super angry, and even when they're doing their pecking order thing, it's like, all right, the fight is over. That's established.
Yes, this is our third set, and our first set we were very friendly with. They were, we named them all, and I would say that they were not aggressive at all. The second set, we had actually quite a few. We did not spend any time with them, and those, it was difficult to feed. They would attack your hand. They would just come at you.
No, our daughter was afraid to go out there. It's like all you have to do is go open the door, but as soon as you open this little door, you'd have a dozen chickens flying out after your hand. And they all just they disappeared slowly, and we weren't saddened by that.
No, it wasn't. I think that we learned a lot about the kind of chicken and that kind of thing. And so then our third batch, yes, I think that they're probably the nicest. I'm still not going to name them at this point. We did finish a lot of things in the chicken coop, so really they should be able to start roaming around in the next few weeks, just in time for the ducks to move out there. So that's a good segue.
That's right. That is a great segue because the ducks are ready to jump out of this box that we have here. When we come back, because we're going to take a break right now, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about these little cute ducks that are just chirping. Oh, you took one out, and the other one is like, oh my gosh, where's the duck? Where's my friend? Where's my friend? So sad. But like I said, we'll come back. We'll talk about some ducks. We'll talk about some plant starters and some calendar things that are coming up. So
yes, very exciting.
Right now, you're listening to The Root of It right here on KLYC 1260 AM.
KLYC News, the latest from around the country and around the world.
Alpine recovery, Iranian talks. I'm John Trout. The recovery operation after the Germanwings jetliner crashed in the French Alps continues. Correspondent Carl Penhall is near the crash site as family members wait.
If it is any consolation to them, the rescue workers are doing their damnedest to get the human remains out and get them ready for burial. It almost appears that at some stages, the forensic investigators are clinging on with their fingertips to that mountain so they don't fall off.
Correspondent Elise Labott says negotiations over Iran's nuclear program continues today.
Iran is really playing hardball, particularly on some key issues such as the pace of sanctions that would be lifted against Iran once the deal is in effect, and also the amount of advanced technology research Iran would be able to do on nuclear technology for the duration of the deal.
An outline agreement is to be the basis for a comprehensive deal to be reached by the end of June. I'm John Trout. President Obama uses the weekly address to go after the Republican budget, saying it lends a hand to top earners.
There's a new more than $250 billion tax cut for the top 1/10 of the top 1% of Americans. That would mean handing out an average tax cut of $4 million a year to just 4,000 Americans per year.
Congressman Phil Rowe uses the Republican weekly address to urge replacing Medicare's sustainable growth rate formula, adding doctors treating seniors face a 21% cut to payments they receive.
For seniors, this will end years of needless concern and frustration that care will suffer from arbitrary cuts. And for families, this will mean a more stable Medicare program to care for their elderly parents.
University of Oklahoma President David Boren says the racist chant sung by members of the school's Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity was learned at an event sponsored by the national chapter. I'm John Trout.
Here's an important credit tip from creditrepair.com. Not only are late payments among the top cause of a lower credit score, but even after you pay them off, late payments remain on your credit report as a negative item that continues to hurt your score. Your credit score improves when those late payments are actually removed from your report, but it can be extremely difficult. That's why you need the credit experts at creditrepair.com. They work with both your creditors and the credit bureaus to remove questionable negative items from your report and improve your credit score. If you're suffering from a low credit score, call creditrepair.com at 800-815-7640. And in just a few minutes, you'll know exactly what's hurting your credit score and how to improve it. For over 15 years, we've been helping thousands. So call the most recognizable name in the industry, creditrepair.com at 800-815-7640. 800-815-7640. 800-815-7640.
KLYC forecasting a slight chance of rain today. Partly sunny skies today and tomorrow. Highs in the low 60s. Overnight lows in the mid-40s. Back to a slight chance of rain on Monday. And Saturday night we are expecting mostly cloudy skies. Winds relatively light. Right now outdoors it's 51 degrees. To the Root of It on AM 1260 KLYC is brought to you by Recology's Northwest Greenland in McMinnville. You know, it takes more than a pile of decomposing yard debris and leaves to make your soil healthy and your plants happy. That's why Recology actively manages their compost to ensure the highest level of microbial activity. The rich soil amendments promote healthy plant life in your vineyard, your nursery, your yard, and your garden. Recology's compost, which is certified for organic growing, can enhance overall soil quality, provide plants with nutrients they need to grow larger and healthier, minimize the need for chemical fertilizers and pesticides, increase your soil's ability to hold moisture and retain nutrients, feed helpful earthworms, create a buffer for your plants against common toxins in the soil, and control pH levels and support essential bacterial growth. It's more than just compost. It's food for your soil. Northwest Greenland's a Recology company. In McMinnville at 2200 Northeast Orchard Avenue. Call Recology Northwest Greenlands at 503-434-1671. 503-434-1671. Recology Northwest Greenlands, a proud sponsor of To the Root of It on KLYC. Need help with your move? Do you have a last-minute move within a 60-mile radius of McMinnville? Try J&J Labor Force. For only $50 per hour, a two-man crew will arrive and bring all the equipment they need to move you and your belongings. If you need a truck, rent one from J&J Labor Force at a 10% discount. Last-minute moves, their specialty. J&J Labor Force, across from the Mobil gas station in McMinnville. 503-474-1881, 474-1881.
And we are back. That was really great. That was good timing. We're back. You're tuned right here to The Root of It on KLYC 1260 AM, your Yamhill County gardening show and duck show.
Yes, today we are a duck show, completely ready to have the ducks on air. The other duck is very concerned that I have his or her little sister up here.
Yeah, but that makes for good radio because now you can hear the chirping in the background. And actually what we did, because we before the break we were talking about the chickens that we're raising in our backyard, because I think the chickens and the ducks, they work in tandem with a garden, because the ducks, from what I hear, and that was one of the big reasons for me to get ducks, is they eat slugs.
Yes,
because
and they eat a lot more bugs, it sounds like. They're big bug getters, and so that's one of the big things that you have to make sure you're providing for them is if you're not going to be their only source of food, you have to make sure that they have slugs and bugs, and we have plenty of that.
Yeah, and we've tried to design a chicken garden, which is to say a garden that is mindful of the chicken practices. And I always thought that it was a benefit because they're like, oh, well, the chicken poop is good for the fertilization when actually you need it to break down and it's not so good. And then I was thinking that the chickens would be good for eating the bugs, but then they're not actually eating the slugs. And then the ducks are actually pretty much what I want because they are eating all of the bugs, they are eating all of the slugs, and they're not necessarily scratching for this stuff. And and
Yes, they're
and
good
digging up my
complements
dirt.
to each other.
Right.
So it's good to have there's no concerns having a mixed flock once they're past a certain age. When they're little, we do see, and this is good advice, that you don't want to intermix them just because their foods are so different when they're ducklings and when they're little chicks. And so we keep them separate. But then in a few weeks, actually it's 2 months, we bring them back into the main fold with all the other ones.
Yeah, our problem was they didn't have the ducks when we got the chickens, and then we didn't really decide that we were going to get ducks until later, and so they're a lot further less along than the chickens are. And so we've got to keep them inside for a little while longer before they can actually go outside. And that's a really valid point about the feed, because I thought that we would just go and pick up these ducks, incorporate them into the flock. But when I was getting them, the sales guy was like, "No, you got to have different feed." And I'm like, different feed. And it's because they eat more than the chickens do. So if they're eating that
medicated food, the medication that's in it, they can get too much of because they eat a larger percent of it, and so it can become toxic to them. And so they do have completely different needs when they're little. And so I had thought that too. If we had got them at the same time, I would have probably thrown them in with the chickens, and that probably wouldn't have ended so well. So I'm really glad that we had to wait, and then we got to research it. And that's actually, no matter how many times I tell it to myself, I have to keep reminding myself. Before you do anything like buy a duck or buy a chicken or plant something, just spend, 15 minutes online looking at the resources that OSU has available, because you learn a lot. Like there's one thing we just learned about ducks that I probably would have used on my argument against them had I known it before, and that is that unlike chickens, ducks need to be put away at night. And so ducks won't just go home to their roost. They're used to being on a lake, I guess. And so they just stay wherever they are. And so in our yard, that won't make it. And so we need to go out every night and make sure that they get in.
Or don't.
Well, we wouldn't have a problem if we did that.
Right.
But
I think that the answer is actually, instead of bringing them necessarily indoors into the coop, we just make sure that they're inside of the fenced coop area and that the fenced area is impenetrable. And I think that we'll be okay that way. As you wink your eye, what is that? Anyway. We were asked by our nephew this morning if we ever argued on the air, and not yet was the answer.
The only thing I don't think we could stop, I don't think we can cover our coop. Maybe we did just build a retaining wall that's very exciting, so maybe there's some opportunity there. But we always do plan to keep them separate now as far as the sleeping quarters. What they need are different. And now we're going to be adding a water source to our chicken coop.
A nice little pond.
So should we call it a poultry area now, not just a chicken coop?
A fowl. It's a fowl. It's the fowl area.
Right. Fowl.
Right. And one of the things about the ducklings that I didn't know, and again, reading before would have resolved that. But I put a little water pond, small area in the area that the ducklings are in right now. Just the planter bottom. I went ahead and I filled that up with water so that they could go in and get their feet wet. And they have been spending so much time in there and loving it, and it's so great. And as it turns out, you're not supposed to do that because they get cold and they die.
Yes, and they can drown.
They can drown.
So they can fall asleep and drown.
They can fall asleep and drown. Okay, that makes a little bit of sense. But this water is not so deep that they can just stick their head in.
It's kind of like a little spoon, though. You only need a little to make the duck, it just needs to be for the bill to fit in.
Right.
But I did notice that when I was closing all the windows, I actually shooed them out of the water because one of them was in it shaking. And I thought, this is you have to put them to bed. And so I shooed them out to the heat lamp so that they snuggled together, and they seemed very excited about that. And that's when I learned also that they like a little blanket in with them. So these ducks are becoming more and more like...
You talk about the blanket.
Yes. Ducks get lonely. And so they like to be warm and snuggled. And so they need a lot of attention. And so putting in a small blanket or a piece of fabric, one of the sites that we researched said that can really help them to not only stay warm, but to feel more loved, so to speak. So
what you did is you took an old swatch fabric from fabric you used to make a blanket or something.
Yep.
So, and then you just threw that in there. Again, one of those morning mysteries that was resolved after you woke up and answered it for me, because I went to sleep and didn't see a piece of cloth in there, and I woke up and there was a piece of cloth in there.
Yeah, and I thought about it for a while. I'm not sure. I'll be watching it to make sure that the cloth that I chose isn't able to be picked apart, but I did choose one that doesn't, that the strings don't come apart really easily.
You don't want them swallowing any
Right.
part of it.
I also started with a really small piece because I've learned enough about these animals that they are animals, and it's going to be really dirty and gross, so I plan to change it often. So I didn't want to go, with a childhood blanket that was passed down or anything. So I just threw in a little,
So these are the
washcloth size.
these are the experiences that we've had over the past day, just trying to get involved in these ducks. And I think that the environment that we have enables us to go ahead and make an informed decision beforehand, and then be able to recover from the mistakes or
Yes.
the non-forethought that we put into some of these things. So, and that's what we're doing right now, is we're playing catch up too. But if we would have waited any longer for these ducks, then we would have to. It's just putting time further back. So we've got them.
Well, and the farm gets really busy in just a couple of weeks. There's no, I mean, right now it's already, if there's not projects done that were supposed to be done before spring, they're not
Right.
getting done this year.
Right.
We're finishing up the last pieces of, the summer,
Just
prep.
preparation, yeah.
So it's very important that we do that. Also, it's just good to, get it established. There's no time like the present.
So we've got the ducks, but beforehand, what we want to think about when you're getting your duck are the ducks going to be primarily used for meat or eggs, or the value of their feathers?
Or pets.
Pets.
There are really two major directions you go when you research on ducks, and there's a pretty big following of people that use ducks as pets. And so we're around Easter. A lot of people get them in their Easter baskets or associated with Easter. They're very cute. That's where you get a lot of the duck problems, where people get tired of them and just shoo them off into the wild. And these are not wild ducks. You shouldn't do that. So the pet side, people actually keep ducks inside and they follow them around, and they're great friends. There are even pet diapers online.
Yeah. Or hardwood floors.
Yes, and so there's that direction. But you can read two duck guides. There is the kind that talk about it as a pet, and then there's the kind that do the other part, which is what you're talking about, where you can either do them for the eggs, the meat, or the feathers.
Yeah. So you want to choose a breed of duck that best suits your particular needs. So the one that we got and the ones that we have here are the mallard ducks, and I just have an affinity for the word mallard and the ducks. And these are, oh my gosh, we got one. We got one loose. We got a jumper. That's really great. So I got the mallards, and these are the ones that are the most recognizable. They're the ones that you see on the logos of hats and everywhere. The green head and the brown body, and it are actually the probably the great-great-great-grandfather gene of all of the domesticated ducks that we have.
They said that they are because of the tail feathers. There's some reading we did that said that the wild mallard has tail feathers that are distinguishable, and that all domesticated birds seem to have that, and so that's how they get that.
Yeah, all of the domesticated ducks have these curved feathers that go down, and it's for male ducks have those. So it's called the sexing feathers. And the mallard duck, and when after, again, playing the catch-up research that we were doing for the mallard duck, is it's not a good meat bird. It lays eggs, but, it's not really an egg bird either. And it's got really nice feathers, but what are you going to do with them?
Again, it's more for our experiment of what it takes to be a farmer. Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
But we have 9 chickens. We don't really need any more eggs.
We don't need any more eggs, and I think it'd be neat to throw in a duck egg to our friends' dozen every once in a while, and then we just won't tell them and see if they think, oh, I'm really excited to see how much bigger they are or what the taste difference is. And but we've already decided that we don't eat most of our chickens, and so I don't plan to eat our ducks either. So
yeah, an important note about the mallard duck is they're actually protected under the 1918 Migratory Bird Treaty Act of U.S. and Canada, which means that you can't capture one and keep one as a pet, and you can't capture their eggs and hatch them, or you can't just go get their eggs. So
correct.
Not allowed to do any of that for the wild ones. However, they sell them in the stores, which makes it a lot easier and legal. So why don't we take a really quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the more particular ones like the Muscovy and the Pekin duck.
All right.
Because those are the ones that are used for the meat,
Yep.
and those are the ones that you always see on Aflac commercials. So, Aflac. Right now you are tuned to The Root of It right here on KLYC 1260 AM, streaming on Facebook.
If the open road is calling you and your RV, let's make sure it's ready to go before you hit the road. You know, spring is just around the corner. There is no time like the present for an RV tune-up at TNT Motorsports' new RV Service Center. TNT services all makes and models of autos, including trucks, cars of all sizes, ATVs, motorcycles, and they have parts for all your needs. TNT Motorsports expert technicians have been servicing RVs in this area since 1988. Call for an appointment at 503-472-9700. That's 503-472-9700. TNT Motorsports at Bunn's Village, just north of McMinnville on Highway 99W. Stop by today. Willamina Wednesday sponsor, Hampton Lumber Company, is having a prime bark dust sale this Saturday, March 28th from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. or until the bark dust is sold. $25 for a 980 bucket load, and it's cash only. At the Willamina Log Yard, watch for the signs. Make sure to tarp your load. That's this Saturday, March 28th. The sale is open to the public, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. $25 for a 980 bucket load of prime bark dust. From Hampton Lumber Company in Willamina.
Hi, this is Denise Stoutenberg, and I'm excited to say about the Cherrywood Memory Care. This brand new community is opening this April in McMinnville. As no two people are alike, no memory care communities are the same. Each has its own personality and philosophy. At the Cherrywood, we believe that life doesn't just happen. Life is what we make it. It's our goal to assist our residents to live an active life filled with joy and happiness. If you are looking for exceptional memory care in a serene residential location, we invite you to experience the uniqueness of the Cherrywood. For more information or to schedule a visit, please call 503-857-0338.
Here on KLYC 1260 AM, streaming on Facebook. This is To the Root of It, talking about ducks right now. And the two main breeds that we should probably talk about are the Pekin, Pekin,
right,
and the Muscovy. That's also spelled with letters. And so these are the two main species for the duck breeding industry. And that's because they're able to produce the biggest meat to date feed ratio.
Correct. So they usually reach 7 to 8 pounds in about 7 weeks, it says. And commercial producers, they can obtain 7 to 8 pounds in a duck in 7 weeks. And so there's a lot of you can read sites on how to increase the size of your bird and that type of thing. And that's what these commercial sites have really figured out how to do, is to hone that in.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for when you're thinking about the meat. Is you don't want to spend a lot of money on the feed, and you don't want to spend. And the longer the bird is alive, the more money you have to spend on the feed. So the commercial growers have figured it out. So. What else is there on there?
Well, and it's important to know that even the Peking should not be raised past 10 weeks of age because they become really difficult to pluck, and there's some other things that start to happen. And so ducks are kind of delicate on when you can eat them. So if you're going to go with a pet, don't worry about it. But if you're not, you really have to look into your particular breed and when the best time is to fatten them up. And if you don't get them fat, there's some that if you don't get them fat by a certain time, you just shouldn't eat them. It's just too tough a meat.
Because it becomes too tough. And the time frame is really about 12 weeks, so is that thing 3 months old? Don't even bother eating. It's a little tough. I mean, you can still eat it, but we're looking for the prime stuff that you find in the stores that's palatable to everybody.
Correct.
And it also they taste a little bit different when they're farm raised as opposed to the commercial raised one. But the Peking is popular because of the fast growth rate with the commercial growers, but also the yellow skin. That's what we're used to seeing here in America. That looks really, it stands out. But in England, they never got used to the yellow skin, so they need their white-skinned ducks, which is really, I find, strange.
That is interesting. And then the Peking duck seems to have loose feathers, which may make it easier for producers. I don't know, but that's what our research showed us.
Well, you remember plucking chicken feathers and what a chore that is. So anything that makes it just that much easier is probably a benefit to it.
Absolutely. Mallards, so since we were talking about that, mallards, one of the concerns I had were if they could fly away. And this also has to do with what you're feeding them. So the idea is that, yes, any duck could fly away, and you can continue to trim their wings if you want to go that route. But you can also just fatten them up so that they're not likely to fly, and it's difficult.
I liked learning about that because the concern that we have about any of the birds that we have is that they're going to go ahead and fly away, especially ducks. We were asked by our daughter this morning, do we have to worry about them flying south for the winter? No. Because if you keep them fat, they can't fly. The aerodynamics just aren't there. Their wings don't have the lift.
Right, and they get kind of lazy with the whole, if you're going to feed me, I'll just stay here.
But then you also get a added benefit by not having them raised by their mother that knew how to fly or can fly. It doesn't teach them how to use wings, so they don't actually know. They're like penguins. They don't know that they've got these things that
the chickens might show them.
The chickens could probably actually. That is a good point, Celeste. You're right. The chickens probably will end up showing them. So there's this other breed. It's called the Muscovy, and my dad had one on his farm, and it is without a doubt one of the ugliest creatures on the earth, because it looks like somebody took sulfuric acid and threw it on their face, and then used scalding hot water to rinse it off. It is just a beast of a thing because it's all. That comb kind of skin just right
bubbly, almost boiled,
and red, and just and that's covering the whole face. But they've got the benefit of being a really good meat bird.
You know, I just feel I have to call this out though because it's not technically a duck.
Right, its own species. It's a Muscovy.
It is, and so it's not considered a duck, and yet it is one of the top duck meats, which is always kind of confusing because if it's not a duck,
no,
but it is because it quacks like a duck.
It walks like a duck because so it's hard to categorize these Muscovies and these hideous-looking things, and the reason it's hard to categorize because they have a body like a duck, they nest like a duck, they attack predators and hiss like a goose, and they roost like a chicken, and they have plump breasts like a turkey. So it's like some good qualities of everything except for the hissing of the goose thing.
And the prettiness.
And they're pretty from the neck down.
You may want your bird that you plan to eat to be a hisser for predators.
Right.
I did also. It's important to know if you are raising your ducks in your backyard, dogs like ducks. So they did say that the number one reason that ducks generally get killed domestically is dogs.
Are the dogs, huh? Because they're trained to eat the ducks?
Dogs really seem to like the chase of a duck, that flaps just like they're supposed to. It runs when they want to. It makes a sound, and it doesn't seem to bite them.
We have that problem with chickens also. Dogs like things that move really fast.
Chickens are faster, though, it would appear.
Oh, so you're saying that the duck can't get away?
The duck can't get away, and they attract the dog, and so that's a bad combination.
Okay. So that is...
Then there's the egg-laying ducks. So we talked about the meat. Now we can talk about the egg-laying.
Let's do that.
So I don't remember ever having a duck egg personally. I've seen a duck egg, I believe, and I think that they're... richer egg, but that's really what I'm excited to see.
When I think of a duck egg, I think of an all yolky kind of thing, like it's that dark orange,
dark,
but that is like egg white tasting. It's like fluffier, and so it's not meatier like I would expect it to be. But we'll find out. Yep. That's for sure.
And there's two particular breeds of ducks that are generally used for egg laying. There's runners and there's Campbell breeds, and they have high, production, just like chickens, can. You can look at different chickens. We talked about this last time that breed a lot of eggs. That's the same thing with these. The thing is that with these two ducks, they both tend to be nervous and flighty, and they will attack. if they're startled. And so they actually say stampede.
Right. No, if they're startled, they will stampede.
Right.
So
And that
stand
just-
back
right.
because the duck stampede is coming. And I just picture, I picture like just this person screaming on the ground, and being stampeded by ducks.
So that's funny. The thing that I picture is in the old cowboy movies when you'd hear the moos in the background that alerted you that the real stampede was coming. There's our ducks, so like quack, 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 quack. So, but you did mention that they fly, and that would be scary if suddenly all these ducks flew up into your face. That's a pretty big stampede.
But they're laying an egg a day, so just like
4 eggs per week. So it's not always just one. Usually a chicken will skip a day or so.
And
so
they're like, thankfully, they'll skip a day.
Thank goodness. But just like chickens, you'll really have to watch some. Even if you get a breed that is an egg layer, you'll have some that produce a lot of eggs and some that don't produce as many. I said this with the chickens as well. Some people actually count how many eggs a particular duck is laying, and if it's not producing enough, they cut their losses and eat that duck because it's taking too much food for not giving them enough. That's not where I am with my ducks. I have plenty of eggs.
Yeah, again, with the mallard ducks, we're not expecting too many eggs, but with these Muscovies, the incubation period is 35 days, which is a little longer than 28 for the other ones, and that's kind of important because as a breeder, that means that you're spending another week with each one. But these things can get up to 10 to 12 pounds, and but the female is only 5 to 6 pounds, and I'm going somewhere with this because the Muscovy, if you breed it with another duck species, it's like a donkey and a horse. You get a mule. And so it's actually, you get a mule duck because it can't produce any offspring. It's all sterile.
Interesting.
And it is interesting because then what you can do is, since they're sterile also, these mule ducks are used because the male has such a greater volume of meat than the female does. You can go ahead and sex them out and just have mules, Muscovies, that get a little bit, so you're like getting even more than the 10 to 12 pounds. So it's
right.
So it's really interesting because when you come up with these species that can crossbreed, but then can't then further breed, but we've still found a purpose for them.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's good.
Absolutely, and I think that when you walk yourself into a dead end like that, you should ask yourself, well, if they can't breed, is this a good idea? But I guess if you're just fattening them up,
they make good meat.
They do.
Right. So that is pretty much the ducks that we have.
It is, but we can then kind of go into one other experiment that we talked about with our chickens, and now we'll continue with the ducks, is the garden within the fowl area. Mm-hmm. And we have a hay garden that's being brought up, and now we know what to plant in that hay garden because
the
of what
bale
we read.
hay, because we're not growing hay. You have taken hay bales and
Correct.
you have set them out, and we're going to put seeds of things that might grow in it, because we've talked about bale gardens in
Correct. A few weeks ago we did container gardens, and then I was very excited that there was at the Master Garden Spring into Gardening event, there was a whole show on container gardens, and one of the container gardens, even though it's not technically in a container that we talk about, are hay bales. And just a little disclaimer, hay bales, you want to do your own reading because there is some controversy on whether you should grow food in hay bales or not, so we're not going to go into that. But for chickens and for ducks and that kind of thing, and if you want to grow them for pretty reasons, there's plenty of ways to do that. So we've created kind of a bed of these hay bales, and now we'll be planting seeds in there and hoping that certain things grow. One of the things that I thought about were sunflowers, but I think we're going to have to change that now that I know what ducks eat.
Yeah, but some of the things that you can actually grow for your own poultry feed are the cover crops, because these are things that'll grow up and then they'll lay their own seeds, and you won't have to do too much harvesting for it. So that's the alfalfa, the clover, the annual rye, which we have plenty of, and then the kale, which we are getting a lot of. But the poultry mixes also include turnips, mustards, buckwheat, and grain grasses.
What's really nice is you were saying this about the opposite of the chickens. The ducks actually help these ground covers to grow more. Mm-hmm. So by them eating the bugs and by mixing up the dirt, unlike the chickens that kind of
they eat the seeds before they go to plant, and then they eat the little plants before they grow to seed.
And they also scratch and do all these things, where the ducks actually just give the dirt enough movement that it actually helps to propagate. It makes them grow better. And so some of these ground covers, they say, will grow better in your garden when the ducks are in there. So it'll be interesting with the chickens and the ducks if they're in competition.
It will be interesting to see their competition. Usually they kind of stay away from each other. But again, psychology of waterfowl is what we're in this experiment for. But
right.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we've got our planter, our seedlings planter tray here, and we'll go ahead and we'll talk about some plants that we're getting ready to go ahead and maybe move out to the greenhouse. But right now you're listening to The Root of It right here on KLYC 1260 AM.
Time for a look at sports from KLYC.
This is your NBC Sports Radio update.
Find out if the Cats can keep rolling. The NCAA tournament's top seed, Kentucky, takes on number 3 Notre Dame in an 8:49 Eastern tip in Cleveland. The Wildcats coming off a 39-point victory over West Virginia in semis of the Midwest Regional. They're 37-0, but the 1974 UCLA Bruins had their 88-game winning streak halted by the Fighting Irish. Number 1 Wisconsin, number 2 Arizona face off in a rematch of last year's Elite 8, 6:09 Eastern tip in LA. You can hear both games live on Westwood One. On the ice, Caps and Preds about to drop the puck in D.C. Nashville would clinch a playoff berth with a win. Top of the hour, the East leading Rangers see goalie Henrik Lundqvist return against the Bruins. Boston's lost 6 straight. Penguins forward Evgeny Malkin returns as Pittsburgh hosts Arizona. The West leading Ducks visit the Islanders. I'm Dave Joseph, NBC Sports Radio, and the NBC Sports Radio mobile app.
The Dream Garage sales event has great deals on almost everything we make, like generators for backup power, and the techno-packed Honda Odyssey with rear-view camera standard for backup power. So go! You've got a garage to fill.
During the Dream Garage sales event, get 0.9% APR financing for well-qualified buyers on a 2015 Odyssey. Now, at your Honda dealer.
Confirm safe conditions before backing up. Rear-view camera doesn't display all info about conditions and objects behind vehicle. See your local dealer for financing details.
Follow defending Masters champion Bubba Watson and the world's best golfers April 6th through the 12th on the tournament's official website, Masters.com. Get closer than ever to the beauty, tradition, and excitement of the Masters tournament by logging on all week long. Masters.com offers live, full-screen HD video coverage, real-time scoring, plus up-to-the-minute tournament news, statistics, and more. Masters.com, your online source for the 2015 Masters.
To the Root of It on AM 1260 KLYC is brought to you by Recology's Northwest Greenland in McMinnville. You know, it takes more than a pile of decomposing yard debris and leaves to make your soil healthy and your plants happy. That's why Recology actively manages their compost to ensure the highest level of microbial activity. The rich soil amendments promote healthy plant life in your vineyard, your nursery, your yard, and your garden. Recology's compost, which is certified for organic growing, can enhance overall soil quality, provide plants with nutrients they need to grow larger and healthier, minimize the need for chemical fertilizers and pesticides, increase your soil's ability to hold moisture and retain nutrients, feed helpful earthworms, create a buffer for your plants against common toxins in the soil, and control pH levels and support essential bacterial growth. It's more than just compost. It's food for your soil. Northwest Greenland's a Recology company. In McMinnville at 2200 Northeast Orchard Avenue. Call Recology Northwest Greenlands at 503-434-1671. 503-434-1671. Recology Northwest Greenlands, a proud sponsor of To the Root of It on KLYC. Did you know that a burglary occurs in this country once every 42 seconds, and that a home without a security system is up to 3 times more likely to be burglarized? D&D Electrical McMinnville wants to be your security contractor. D&D Electrical is a licensed low-voltage contractor and offers everything from intrusion to fire to digital surveillance and 24-hour central station monitoring. 503-472-4003. Ready to go to work for you right now. D&D Electrical, McMinnville. Easter Sunday is coming up. Time to start making plans to dine out now. Golden Valley Restaurant and Brew Pub invites you to come on down and enjoy the Easter Sunday Grand Buffet, April 5th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Grand Buffet will include all-natural Angus Springs Ranch roast baron of beef, Pacific King salmon with yellow curry, vegetarian lasagna, grilled Tuscan chicken with pesto, baked ham with apple Dijon sauce, peel and eat prawns, Belgian waffles with strawberries, and so much more. Make your reservations now. Adults $25, seniors $20, under 12 $12, and under 4 eat for free. Full menu is also available. Golden Valley Restaurant and Brew Pub, 980 Northeast 4th Street, McMinnville. Call 503-472-BREW.
And welcome back. You are tuned right here to the root of it on KLYC. We've been talking about ducks most of the morning.
We have.
And particularly how they pertain to our gardening. And now we're going to actually talk about the seed starts that I only planted just this past weekend.
Real quick before we move on to that, I do
Oh, no,
want
you
to
wanted
say,
to talk about some ducks some more?
I do. Just real quickly, we talked about a water source in our ducks, and something that we read that I had not known for sure, and now it's positive, which is you have to have, if you're going to have a pond with your ducks, you want to make sure that it's flowing. You can't have stagnant water. It can be really disgusting and actually be sick for you and your family.
Or at least changing the because what you've seen is you get one of those kiddie pools and you fill that up with water and you let the ducks go in there. I think that's kind of okay because you're changing the water as long as you're changing the water out.
You have to regularly.
Often, but otherwise you have to have a pump that's constantly filtering the water
because they're going to eat that water
and
they're going to put their mouth in that water, and so if it is sick,
right.
it'll make them sick. Although ducks are more tolerant.
Yeah, the thing that you're right about the eating part, because what we've learned about these little ducklings is they need their mush to be they need their food to be mushy.
Yep.
And then what I've noticed them doing is they'll take a bite of the food and they'll go over to the water source then, and immediately so they'll take a bite of food, go to the water source, and then eat it that way.
Correct.
So they're putting their food, they're putting their feces, they're putting all of this in the water. So you're right, you got to keep that clean and.
All right, so let's move on to our garden starts. I think you've done a great job. I like to say we started these, but the credit really does go to you.
That's true. I even picked them all out, too.
Yeah, well, yes. On this side, we have a couple kales. So we have kale,
Yep.
and then we also
And what I wanted to notice is the condensation that was on the lid, because that's kind of what you're looking for. You want to have enough moisture in there, and the lid will keep all of that in. And then,
Yes, and it is a delicate balance on moisture. So as you said, you want to make sure that they're moist enough. But if you do put too much water in them, they can't come up. You basically kind of drown them.
And I think that I've almost gotten just a little bit much. The only ones that we have coming up right now, and this is all of my fault, and why don't we just actually name what we've planted on mine? I've got humongous bush beans. I've also got some mulatto hot peppers, and some indigo blue beauty tomatoes, as well as some strawberry spinach.
So on this side we have kale, which is red Ursula. We have kale, both on those, and then we have purple jalapenos, and then the final thing is pole beans. And actually some of the kale has started to come up.
So you're looking at some kale coming out, and some indigo blue beauty tomatoes have also started to pop up. And it looks like we've got some stuff over there. But the problem is the room that we're keeping it in isn't really heated per se. So at night, the temperature will drop down below 60, maybe get into the 50s. And because of that, the soil temperature then gets down and gets cold. And then it takes a long time for it to then heat up. And so we're getting a little bit slower than if we would keep it in a warmer room, which is the answer.
One of the ways you can do that, though, is if, in our situation, we don't want it in the main rooms because that's in the way. But if when we go to bed, we can just move it into those rooms so it stays somewhat warm at night. That would help. Also, there are heat mats. Now, this is something that I always really liked, but as you've pointed out, being the one that does a lot of these, heat mats can dry out your garden really, really fast.
That's what you have to be really careful of. Some of the heat pads, the majority of them aren't even necessarily dialable, meaning you can't change the temperature up and down. It's just we're going to be 82 degrees. That's what we are. And that gets a little hot for the soil, and it dries it out, so you're going to have to water them. And this way, you don't really have to do the watering.
Correct. So those are all solutions that you can do. Also, just realizing it's going to take a little longer if they are in cold weather. So that kale actually can grow just fine in the cold, though. That one shouldn't have to be as warm.
And what's really great is you brought in a package, and if you look at the back of the package, it tells you the how long it takes to fertilize and what are the top
Absolutely. So it tells you
there?
seed depth, seed spacing, soil temperature for germination, days to germinate, and how much you could thin the plants. Also, the one thing that I've learned about Master Gardening 101 is anything that you're going to do, just read the package. Whether it's spraying something on your garden or planting something, it's all been found out. It tells you growing tips. It tells you how much water they need, how much direct sun, when to put them outside.
That's right, and the germination is the one that I was looking at. So let's look at the kale germination. What does it say on there, on that package?
55 to 75.
For germination?
Soil temp for germination.
Wow. Oh, okay, but it doesn't say how many days to germination.
Yes, it does.
That's what I was looking
days
for.
to germination is 5 to 17.
5 to 17 days. And so the date on these looks like they were on the 25th of March. That was not so long ago. So that's why the kale is just now starting to come up. Same thing if we were to look at the germination days for all of these plants, they'd probably be pretty much in line with there. But you can speed it up if you've got warmer soil.
Correct.
So that is our planting starts. Did we plant everything? We haven't planted everything yet, and there was a reason for not planting everything yet.
Right, like we talked about, this will be one of a few trays. So, kale is something I plan to have in my salads all spring and summer long. And so if I were to plant my whole kale today, then it would be ready all on the same day or the same week, and that's just too much. So what we are doing is we're trying to every week plant a little more. So on this one, there are 2, starts of kale. On the next one, there'll be another 2. The exception to that is with your peppers. You need so many days of sun with tomato and peppers. You really need to get those in the ground, those started already.
And we are behind the curve because the master gardeners that are coming up, and they're going to have the tomatoes and peppers available at the plant sale. Those things are already up. They're 3 inches. Even what you were saying in Tucson, what you saw, that's where you want your peppers to be right now. Ours are just now maybe popping out of the soil almost, but at the Yamhill County Master Gardeners annual plant sale,
that saves us every year.
Yes, you're on time, and so this year's plant sale is actually on the 25th of April. That's
it is
Saturday. It'll be 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Yes, but if you've never been before, get there at before 9. There's usually a line that goes quite a ways, and I say that the plant sale keeps me as a good gardener because even though we forgot or we didn't get us started with some of this stuff, the plant sale was started by some great volunteers that never seem to forget. They have a great checklist. They have a great start. And so we'll just go in and get our tomatoes and our peppers and get those in the ground within that week. So
and the tomatoes, some of those things still need to sit in the greenhouse a little bit longer, but they've already been started. And as you can see, by the ones that we have started that are just barely, they look sad compared to what I've seen at the greenhouse that's going on right now. It's pretty sad. But again, that plant sale for the Master Gardeners is on the 25th of April, which is a Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's at the Yamhill County Fairgrounds in McMinnville on Lafayette.
And, even though there's quite a few people there, it's a really convenient, location. We have volunteers that help to park folks. We do ask a lot of times for people to bring boxes to bring their stuff in. I don't know what the situation is going to be this year, but it's always good to bring some containers to carry around your plants. And like he said, it's at the Yamhill County Fairgrounds on Saturday, April 25th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We usually actually go, we volunteer at it, but we also come back a couple times. We always seem to find more plants. Plus, it's not just the OSU Master Gardeners. There are also 20 plus specialty vendors. So you can buy trees there. I know we got some of our Japanese maples there last year. There's always a great selection. You always get excited that I pick up spearmint and mint. So if you want it, it's there.
Yeah, it's where to go. to get your annuals that you're not necessarily reseeding for. So, yep, again, that's coming up. But right now, we are at 10:02 a.m. here. The kids are outside the studio running around. I think they're pretty much done. I think we got to go feed them or...
And the ducks definitely need to get going home, so...
So, yeah, thanks. It's been another week. If you missed anything on this show, you can go ahead and catch the rerun on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and search To the Root of It, KLYC. And this week's show should be up there within scant moments. We'll be back next week, and we should be actually talking about some books. Next week we have our Yamhill County librarian, Beth Durr, coming in and to talk about, we've got a wild duck going. We've got another duck freeing itself. So it's definitely time to get out of here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming in, dear wife. And we will see you next week on To the Root of It, KLYC 1260 AM.
Bye, everybody.
And keep your tools sharp.